First things first, LeBron's in the lab. He's cooking up a plan for year 19. Will he get his vengeance? Probably delicious. 2021 Basketball Hall of Fame selection, Chris Bosh stopping by to talk all things NBA. Always a great time when Chris stops by. Can't wait for that. And Devin Booker rolling into the arena in style last night. Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. Nick, was it awkward that you and Booker have the same ride? Was it awkward for you to watch him come in, basically?
Oh, that's very funny. Brandon might have that car, but I was just 2 weeks ago looking at a very similar car, not with those rims though. That deserves a gold medal by itself. That is a beautiful piece of American machinery by Devin Booker.
South Florida style.
That is amazing. Rims. Those rims worth more than my house, I'm sure, if I had a house. Of course, that's what you know it's called. The guy that made it is probably your neighbor. We start with Game 2, Bucks-Nets last night. As Nick Wright would say, I'm old enough to remember yesterday when we discussed how James Harden's absence would impact the Nets. Turns out that answer, not at all. Nets blowing the doors off the Bucks in this one, winning by 39 points. Milwaukee loses. Brooklyn takes a 2-0 series lead in this. Kevin Durant leading the way with 32 points and with 0 injury concerns. Take a listen to what I mean.
Tomorrow will mark 2 years since you initially injured your calf. I know you worked your butt off to get to this point, but did you ever think you'd be this good?
Is that a real question? Of course. I mean, what you want me to say to that? Of course I did.
It's pretty impressive what you've been able to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, I mean, that was 2 years ago. I'm looking forward to just getting up tomorrow and going to practice, watching film, and seeing how we can get better. But, you know, I appreciate that. But, you know, that was too long ago.
At the end of the day, I didn't get too high, I didn't get too low. You know, even after the Miami series, you know, we was up 4-0. Coming to this series, I wasn't high, and now we're down 2-0. I'm not low. You know, I'm just, you know, keep doing what I'm doing, keep trusting my work, keep trusting my teammate, keep believing in the team, keep believing in the habits we built all year, and hopefully, Game 3 we can get a win.
Kind of feel like maybe Giannis needs to do just a little more than all of that. Hey, Brandon. Through 2 games, is Brooklyn's domination in this series more about the Bucks or is it about the Nets?
Listen, definitely, got a little to do with Giannis and the Bucks, but this is all about the Nets. I mean, look at this team last night. You know, the first half, stifling defense. You know, they're forcing turnovers. You know, just seeing them close out was phenomenal. We talked a lot about their defense, and seeing them take that to a whole nother level was something to see. And then offensively, I mean, we talked about this yesterday, Nick. PJ Tucker trying to guard KD. He was embarrassing him. He almost broke Giannis's ankles a few times last night. And it was a team effort. It wasn't just Kyrie and KD putting up 30-something points. That wasn't it. I mean, this team all contributed. I think they're exceeding their expectations. Offensively, we knew what we were going to get. After they came together, you saw James Harden sacrifice, and you saw what they were going to do when they did play together, just the few games they did. You knew what you were going to get on the offensive side. But defensively, how do you hold a team to 86 points that roll out of bed and put up 120? Like, think about that. That defense last night was tremendous, and for that reason, I think they're exceeding their own expectations, Nick.
Yeah, listen, last night the Nets played an almost perfect game of basketball. I mean, they, on both ends of the court, it was the best game this team has played, I would argue, all season. Certainly the best game in the playoffs, and they did it without Harden. The story through 2 games... through last night, pardon me, was about the Nets. The story through 2 games is partially about the Nets, but also partially about the man who we heard from, and not Kevin Durant and Jared Greenberg, but Giannis. Because Giannis is about to play here on Thursday evening, arguably the biggest game of his career up to this point. Because if they go down 3-0, obviously the series is over. And while it is hard to pin a loss when you are down by 49 at one point on any one guy.
Oop.
Last night, Giannis did not look at all like Giannis. And he looked almost like he was out to prove something to the Nets rather than trying to attack them where he has been successful attacking them all year long. While Blake Griffin is having a resurgence in Brooklyn, one that might cause the city of Detroit to file a class action suit against them for clearly just throwing that season, waiting to get out of there, which I don't blame him for, by the way. Blake can't guard Giannis off the dribble, and Giannis kept letting him off the hook. And then there's Blake dunking for the first time in a couple years. I mean, Blake's athletic resurgence is unbelievable, but it's another story. That Giannis has been very adamant before the playoffs. You remember the quote where he's like, I can't promise it'll go different, but what I can promise is I won't get too high, I won't get too low. I won't focus on just a win or just a loss. That is going to be put to the test because Giannis knows that if they lose on Thursday, Bud's going to get fired. Giannis knows that if they lose on Thursday, it will, fair or otherwise, Wilds, further undercut what he did the last 2 seasons prior to this one and winning those MVPs. And Giannis knows in order for Milwaukee to win, they must follow the blueprint from the regular season, which was Giannis score 40, they collapse the defense, and hit open threes. It all starts with him. So the Nets played a brilliant game of basketball yesterday. I'm taking nothing away from them. But bigger picture, right now it's about Giannis, who could in these playoffs is the best player alive, or could in these playoffs working on his 3rd head coach in 5 years.
Yeah, I get, Nick, the don't get too high, don't get too low. But if I was Coach Bud, I'd be like, Giannis, you know what? Why don't we try to get too high, or like just for, a quarter, or let's try to get too low and start playing angry. Do you know, like speaking of aggressiveness, if you were not in Giannis's family, you didn't attempt a free throw last night. Giannis was 2 for 7, and Thanasis was 2 for 2. That's it. Bucks made 4 made free throws through the entire game. Do I think that is a bad sign that you're not attacking the rim? Yes. Do I think the blowout is this like sky is falling moment for the Bucks? Not really. The team has played 5 times now through the regular season and the playoffs. The home team won every game. The Bucks are going back to Milwaukee. They shoot better from 3. They shoot better from the line. And Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday score in the 20s instead of scoring in the teens. And I know, Brandon, you're like, oh, the blowout. Oh, what about the blowout? Well, you know what? It's not college football. You don't get extra points from the AP coaches poll if you beat a team by 40. It's just a win. So while it looked bad on paper and everyone is expecting the media to crush the Bucks, it's just a loss. They have to go back home, tie it up 2-2, and then try to steal one in Brooklyn.
It's just a loss. Did you not watch the game last night? Did you not watch the game Saturday?
I did watch it, the whole
Man,
thing,
come
twice.
on. This is not, they're not playing against the Hawks. They're not playing against even the 76ers. They're playing against 2 of the best players to ever do it. There's no coming back from this, guys. It's over. This is personal for them. Think about it as an athlete's mindset. All we talked about was Kyrie's mindset and his mentality. Do he even love the game? Kevin Durant, look how he answered the question after the game. Are you serious? Is that a real question? This is personal for these boys. They're making a statement. That's why they're playing defense the way they're playing defense. That's why they're so efficient off. Look at his face. This is personal. James Harden, he gets traded. We're talking about his stomach. We're talking about, he's not going to be able to sacrifice. He's too ball dominant. So for you to think that the Bucks have a chance after watching these last 2 games, that's confusing to me.
Well, Brandon, you said that this was going to be their toughest series of the playoffs. I think you picked the Nets in 6,
100%.
which would mean the Bucks have to win 2 of these games. So to Wild's point, the games they would win most likely would be the home games. Now, I do think that because Harden went down, this 2-0 for Milwaukee actually feels worse than a typical 2-0 because you would have had to hope you could have stolen one of the 2 games when James Harden didn't play. Now, I would be shocked if he plays on Thursday. They're certainly not going to rush him back after they annihilated Milwaukee last night. They will give him extra time, and I don't even know apparently they were very cagey, like a hamstring. What did they call it? They didn't even call it a strain. They called it hamstring tightness. Like, I don't know exactly what Harden is dealing with, so I don't know if it would be giving him extra time or the time he needs. So I understand why Milwaukee's mindset is one right now of desperation. But what they have to do is win Game 3 on Thursday. And in order to do that, Giannis has to get back to doing what he had done against the Nets every time they played this year prior to last night. His approach last night was an odd one and one I didn't expect to see from him. It was like he thought he was going to hit a bunch of jump shots when that's never been his game.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that, I said is they're exceeding their own expectations. They're certainly exceeding mine. You look at Game 1, one of the things that we highlighted yesterday, we said it wasn't going to fly, 20% from the three-point line, from deep. And then last night, 29%. Man, that defense, the closeout, they're just, the scheme that they're throwing out there, the young Steve Nash is unbelievable. You're seeing what they're doing against Giannis. You're seeing how they're playing Middleton. You're seeing how they're playing Drew Holiday and P.J. Tucker. They have a game plan for everybody on the court, no matter what moment it is. It's amazing to watch.
You also wonder if Milwaukee came into that series a little overconfident from what they did to Miami and how they played Brooklyn earlier in the season, and perhaps, you don't have to raise your hand, you can just jump in, and perhaps weren't fully prepared for what they saw with this Brooklyn team. Kevin.
Can I just add one? I know we're up against the break. Brandon, to start the show, after your Nets beat the Bucks by 39 points, I just want to say that you're doing an excellent job keeping your jerseys out of the shot and keeping your predictions.
You didn't even wear black today.
Right now, they haven't reared their ugly heads yet, so I just want to commend you.
Still have time.
It's been a nice, pleasant
still have time.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll give Brandon a chance to recoup and go get the jerseys. Much more in this game still to come. We got to head out west. Suns getting it done in Game 1. Was it ever in doubt? When Booker showed up in style like this, we discuss next. First things first. Hey, let's play a little drawing a blank. On to Revel and Fanny. Start out west. Little Nuggets, Suns, and Phoenix remains so hot. Took a 1-0 lead last night in the conference semifinal. Chris Paul leading the way with 21 points and 11 assists. What shoulder injury? Hey, Brandon, Game 1 between the Suns and the Nuggets was blank.
More of the same, Jenna. This team looked amazing. They played together, and this is what they've been doing all year. They're probably the most complete team in the NBA and the most complete team still alive. You had 23 from Bridges, 21 from Booker. Booker, like Nick pointed out, pulled up in the old school dunk in a 7 tray. And he played like that, man. He played real big at times. Then you had Paul hit some big shots. He brought in 21, 8 and 20 points. And then you also had Crowder, contribute with 14 points. So this was a total complete game. It was a really good half. The first half was a lot of back and forth. And then in the third quarter, they start separating themselves. The Suns is a dangerous team, but I do think that the Joker is going to make this into a series. So let's not get too comfortable out there in Phoenix.
Yeah, listen, Denver went up 8 early in the third quarter, and then the Suns outscored them by 30 over the next 20-some minutes to blow this game wide open. My answer is this game was timeline adjusting, and that's for the NBA. So the NBA, I believe, wants to award Nikola Jokic his MVP either in Game 4 or Game 6 of this series at home in Denver. If I'm the Joker, I don't know that I want that to happen. I don't know if the Joker's old enough to remember when Hakeem Olajuwon, who should have won the MVP, had to watch David Robinson win it in front of him, and then Olajuwon annihilated David Robinson for that game and the rest of that series, maybe because he felt like his MVP was taken from him. If Chris Paul has to watch Nikola Jokic win an MVP that should be Chris Paul's, I don't think that's good for the Joker. So I think the Joker should call up Adam Silver and be like, hey, push it to the conference finals. And Adam Silver might be like, bro, you might not be in the conference finals. It's like, I don't care. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But don't give me the award in front of Chris Paul. Don't do it. So it's timeline adjusting, Wilds.
It's a great take. Great take. By the way, Nicholas Wright had this take maybe a month ago, and it's going to come true. So bravo, my friend. Brandon's not the only one calling stuff right on this darn show. Hey, my answer is I'm missing Murray. I was like, oh, you know what? This game's all right, but I miss Jamal Murray from the bubble. This team played 3 times in the regular season. Denver won 2 of them. He had 31, 18, and 26. But now all he's doing is taking one-legged jump shots in pregame. And I watched that video multiple times, to be honest with you. So I don't think Denver really has a chance. I think the Suns are too powerful, and DeAndre Ayton's playing great. Oh, there he is! So this is a shot I missed. If this was happening in the real game, I'd feel good. And honestly, little Klay Thompson, put him in the corner, a few dribbles, take a shot. Maybe Jamal Murray's coming back. No. Start that rumor. I get stuff
tore his ACL 6 weeks ago, buddy. He tore his ACL 6 weeks ago.
I do miss Jamal Murray.
Looks good to me.
I forgot about him. Head to Dallas where questions about Kristaps Porzingis' future are swirling. Latest report says Porzingis feels like an afterthought to Luka. Hey, Brandon, Kristaps reportedly being frustrated with his Mavericks role is blank.
Delusional. Very delusional. I mean, you got to think about it. You're the highest paid guy. We get that. And you're expecting to be treated as such. But you're not being treated that way because they can't count on you. You're banged up all the time. You are literally a liability on the court. They don't know when you're going to be out there. And when you're out there defensively, anybody can get buckets on you. And you can go down any minute. So he's a bit delusional. Well, not a bit delusional. He's really delusional. That's my answer, Nick. He got to get it together, man, and figure out who he's going to be moving forward. I don't think anybody can count on him no matter where he goes.
And this is embarrassing because he's got the best gig in the NBA is the star alongside the superstar. Ask Klay Thompson how that's worked out for him. Ask Kyrie how that's worked out for him in Cleveland and now also in Brooklyn. The guys who, when they play great, get love, and if they don't, the superstar is going to get the blame anyway. Like, Luka Doncic is the guy everyone in the league wants to play with. He distributes the ball. He's incredibly clutch. He's only going to get better. And the fact that Kristaps is upset that this isn't his team, buddy, he's a lot better than you. And the way you played in this postseason, so is Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., and maybe Boban. Get your act together, Kristaps. This is going to be a disaster for my large adult Slovenian son because they've got $100 million wrapped up in this guy who wants to get run out of Dallas the way he got run out of New York. It's embarrassing. It's totally embarrassing.
Right.
Life of a unicorn.
Okay, Boban is better at selling goldfish, but he's not better of a basketball player than Porzingis. My answer is obviously, and I know we all love Luka, and there's one rule on this show, there's no Luka slander, but gosh darn it, Luka does control the ball a lot. In the past 25 years, and I know we think this is a positive Luka stat because it's scoring and assisting. Like, all right, but that means you're turning Porzingis into a spot-up shooter. He's got to get it and shoot it. I don't think he likes it. And you can do a little digging on YouTube and see something that's ironically called Luka and Porzingis chemistry. Guess what? There's no chemistry. It's just a lot of shots of Luka driving to the basket and Porzingis like basically making the field goal sign of like, hey, I'm open, or hey, pass the ball to me. So, look, I think it's obvious. You should have never left New York, buddy.
All right, let's see how they retool that roster around Luka this offseason. Back with a Basketball Hall of Famer,
Nice.
2-time NBA champ, Chris Bosh. Chris joining the conversation next. This is First Things First on a Tuesday morning.
Bosh.
Hey, Sunday on FS1, you excited? I'm excited. NASCAR hits the Lone Star State for the 2021 All-Star Race. The circuit's best drivers competing for a shot
Jenna
at $1
Wolfe.
million. Sunday, 8 Eastern. Brandon Marshall on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
You know what time it is?
Just say it, buddy.
Bubba,
I think it's Bubba time.
Let's go, Bubba. Come on, Bubba. This is the weekend that Bubba's going to do it. He's going to get the checker flag.
This is the one. It's this one, not any other one. This is the one. I love you, Brandon. Back here, First Things First, we're now joined by our good friend Chris Bosh. You know, 2-time NBA champ Chris Bosh, 11-time All-Star, recently selected member of the 2021 class to the Basketball Hall of Fame, Chris Bosh. Of course, we've been really excited to have you this morning. The guys are all pumped up. Good morning. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive into the game last night because we got a lot we want to talk to you about. So, Bucks-Nets, Game 2. Nets coming in with no James Harden, but no, it didn't matter. Brooklyn blowing him out, beating the Bucks by 39 points. How about KD? Looked like the best player in the world last night, 32 in the win. So let's start with you, Chris Bosh. How surprised are you by how this series has played out so far through 2 games?
I got to be honest. I'm very surprised. Not that the Nets have defended their home court aggressively. More so just the lack of intensity from the Bucks. They have been, doing a good job.
Chris, who's behind you?
That did not work.
We're fixing some stuff. Sorry, I got some stuff all over the place. My God.
Oh, fantastic.
Great. I just want to make sure it's not someone being kidnapped. You're good.
Yeah,
make sure it's someone you know.
Oh, goodness.
It's surprising, just the effort or lack of effort from the Bucks. You expected them to come out with, some intensity, hopefully trying to get to the finals. And you want to see better body language. You want to see them be more intense. You definitely want to see them do more. I mean, I'm just surprised, just on offense and on defense, to get drugged by 40 points on the road. That's not sending the right message. Hopefully they could go back and defend home court, but they're definitely not in a position you want to be in being in a series.
Chris, I want to talk to you at some point during this about 2 power forwards. One is Blake Griffin, and we can get to him in a moment. The other is Giannis. And I asked you off the air, something early in your career that you weren't great at that you grew into. And you said, listen, when I was in Toronto early on, guys thought they could bully me down on the block. They thought they could get physical with me. And I'm curious if you ever went into a game before you were great at it, before you had gotten over that hurdle, and you were you knew they were challenging you on it, and you went into the game saying, I'm going to prove to them I can do it, even if you couldn't quite do it yet. The reason I ask is it felt to me like Giannis yesterday knew they were challenging him to shoot jump shots, and he fell into their trap. Like it's like he gave them, it was almost like he was trying to prove a point that he didn't need to prove. Am I reading too much into that, or can you relate to that? Did you see the same thing?
Well, I mean, you do have to play your game, right? You do have to find that balance of playing your game and, of course, working on those weaknesses, and so you have to improve on. And look, he's going to have to knock down a couple of open jumpers, but the Bucks are in their wheelhouse when he's being aggressive, when he's attacking the paint, when he's collapsing the defense, and then they're getting to that ball movement on their close, working on closeouts and continuing to move the ball. I think, he can't settle too much. If you look at these highlights, they're down already 20 points. And look, it's not going to be hinging on him shooting jump shots. They've got to get stops. That's pretty much what it comes down to. If KD, KD, you're probably not going to be able to hold him under 35, 40 points a game. But if he's shooting at the clip that he's shooting at, it's impossible to beat these guys. So they're going to have to get KD down under 50% from the field. They're going to have to start playing better defense. And, Giannis is going to have to be much more aggressive and stop letting him off the hook. I mean, again, they're down, they got down big, and usually you're not going to get back into the game shooting jumpers. So I expect Giannis to be extremely aggressive in these next couple games. And I expect the Bucks to get back to their game, because if they don't, I mean, they put themselves against the wall pretty quickly. We'll see how they respond.
Yeah, Chris, I hear you on the defensive stuff, man, but it will help if Giannis can develop a shot. You were a guy that developed a shot, through the years. I mean, you always had that corner shot, but then when you talk about shooting from deep, as time went on, you got better. So maybe he needs to come down to Austin and work with you this offseason, so give your boy a call. But I want to talk about the Nets here, man. You guys put together a big big three down in Miami. When you saw the Nets, you saw James Harden, those guys put this team together, what was the number one thing that you thought they needed to overcome to be able to be in this position today?
I think their biggest challenge, of course, is always going to be sharing the ball. What kind of continuity they're going to have on offense, how they're going to be moving on a string together on defense, and of course, how they're going to play together, how they're going to gel as a team, and more importantly, of course, how the other guys on the team, the bench players, the role players, how they're going to accept and excel at their role, and really just dealing with the pressure. I think. They're the title favorites, of course, even without Harden. I think a lot of people still have them picked to win. For them, it's just going to be dealing with the pressure and dealing with those moments of when it's more or people are trying to make it more than just the game. So as these playoffs advance, they do get harder. We'll see how they continue to respond. And really, they're gelling together nicely. They're gelling quickly. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond when they're challenged, because they will be challenged. I don't expect everything to be as easy as it's been. But, with that said, they have a lot of talent on that team. They're playing well together. The bench is stepping up every time. We'll see how it goes as the playoffs continue.
Quickly, that first finals that you guys made it to, it seemed like there was a ton of pressure on y'all, like the weight of the world on y'all. I don't feel that from the Nets. Do you feel that the Nets have the same pressure that you guys had down in Miami?
No, it's a bit different. People seem to like this team a little more. They're backing this team a little more, which is fantastic. It's good to just see them, like I said, come together as a team, gel together as a team, because that's a difficult thing. With that said, the pressure on them is to win, just like it is always. The Eastern Conference Finals, the finals, those are very, very hard situations, and they have some things to work out with Harden not being available right now, with him having that nagging injury. I'm interested also to see, with them not playing a whole regular season together, if fatigue will be a factor. We're seeing KD play at a high level like he's capable of, Kyrie playing at a high level, but with struggling with injuries the way they have all year, not having their feet under them, I love to see how, if endurance will play a factor in these playoffs.
Chris, I want to ask you about the margin of victory. This is a quote from Giannis after the game. At the end of the day, if you lose by 1 or lose by 30, it's still the same. Still you lose. Do you buy that? Do you buy that, like, if it was a close game, the Bucks would feel the same way, the fact that they got blown out?
I know what Giannis is doing, and it is true, but no, that is look, we're not in the Bucks locker room. There's a difference, okay? Now, with that said, we're going to see what the Bucks are made out of, okay? Getting drug on the road, 2 games in a row, that's a bad situation to be in. But they're going home. We'll see how they respond. All the pressure is on for Game 3. We've got to see a heartbeat. We've got to see some life, because that's embarrassing. And if you consider yourself a championship team, you're going to have to respond. Not that you'll lose by 30s on some nights. That might happen, but it's all in the response. They're going to have to win a game in Brooklyn. So, they're in a predicament. The playoffs have started. They're in a predicament right now. We're going to see if they're serious about their championship beliefs.
Well, Chris, do them a favor. Send them a DVD of your guys' Game 4 of the 2013 Finals. You guys lost by, I think, 35 in San Antonio to go down 2-1, and then you came back the next night and you beat them, and then you ended up winning the series in 7. By the way, in that series, everyone's like, did Ray Allen hit the biggest shot in NBA history? Maybe, maybe not. You know who got the biggest rebound in NBA history? Unquestionably, this man right here. There is no second place. Chris Bosh got that rebound. But I want to talk to you about Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin wanted to be in movies, comedian, a lot of stuff in LA to go along with basketball. That's not a shot at him. I love Blake as a guy. But he was clear about that. Like, he was expanding his brand. He signs a maximum contract in LA. They put his jersey in the rafters before they signed him to the contract, saying, this is what we're going to do. And 4 months later, They're like, hey, what city in America is the exact opposite of LA? How about Detroit, Michigan? We're sending you there. And it appears it sapped some of his basketball soul. And he is getting some criticism right now for playing so well in an odd way, basically saying he was tanking it in Detroit to get out of there. I don't know if he was or he wasn't. I wouldn't blame him if he was. He deserved to get out of there and have a chance to compete. How surprised are you that Blake has been, to me, the fourth most important net? And since one of the big three's been out a lot of the year, he's been a de facto the third most important net most nights after what he had looked like the last couple years in Detroit.
I mean, you know, that's a weird thing to criticize somebody for playing well. I've never really heard of that, especially during the playoffs. You're supposed to up your game with a championship caliber team and in the playoffs, right? Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know much about his situation before. I'm pretty sure it was quite disappointing to go from one team to another, to go from your home in LA to trying to figure things out on the fly in Detroit, and really trying to, you know, have a resurgence in your career. Look, if Blake Griffin plays well, you're not going to be able to beat those guys. If he's scoring 18, 20 points a game, getting 10 rebounds, if he's getting 18 and 10, 20 and 10 a game, you're not going to be able to beat him. And he's been able to find a great fit really in the last couple of weeks, really settling into his role since the playoffs started. If he brings energy, if he plays defense, and if he just does the things that he can do, and especially hitting that outside shot, he's going to be able to spread the floor. He can play that spread 5 if they need him to in the crunch time situations. And he can just be a contributor on the floor. And I mean, if you have KD and Kyrie making plays for you, and if you've got your hands ready and you can put the ball in the hole, you know, you're going to excel. You know, Blake can do all of those things. And that's on top of his explosiveness in the half court and in the full court situation. So yeah, I expect him to continue to play well. I expect him to continue to take the challenge on Giannis, which is most important. And you know, he'll continue to aspire to win a championship. They're there to win a championship. Anything short of that is a failure. They know that. And so he's bringing his A game.
Right. Plus, DirecTV already thinks he's a star. Jared Goff is like, wait, how does this story end up? Chris, stick around. We got much more to talk about. LeBron is in the lab. Will he get his vengeance? He just got the Jared Goff. Will he get his vengeance next season? We will toss that around for you next. This is First Things First. Every once in a while, Back here, First Things First, with Hall of Famer Chris Bosh. Chris, we're talking about one of your notable former teammates, a guy named LeBron. We watched LeBron drop out in the first round for the first time. You wonder if he's already looking to next season. That would be a yes. The King posting a clip from Gladiator on Instagram. I will have my vengeance. LeBron's caption, count me out if you want. Chris, do you trust that LeBron will have the Lakers back in the title mix next season?
Yeah, they're pretty good. You know, they have a good core. They struggled with injury this whole year. I think we can all agree on that one. Coming right back off from last season, which is no excuse. This is the name of the game. Coming off of winning the championship in the bubble and then coming right back in this season, I could only imagine. I'm pretty sure it was grueling. But with that said, they dealt with injuries. They really never got off the ground, in my opinion. And even when they were beginning to play well, that's when Bron went down with that high ankle sprain. And, you know, look, they're going to have to get better. I think we all kind of saw them get stagnant. They never really developed an identity on offense. Defensively, everything was intact. They just have to add a few pieces, most likely, and really just get better at what they have. You know, if they hadn't have run into all of these injuries, they'd probably still be playing right now. But with that said, I'm sure that LeBron is motivated. It's good to be motivated. It's good to be in a position you have never been in before, because you know that makes for a great offseason for training.
Chris, when you watch the Lakers in the playoffs this year, LeBron made it clear he was like, I'm out there. I'm not going to talk about the ankle. I'm not going to use it as an excuse. Did you look at LeBron as, he's the 60,000 minutes, year 18's finally caught up with him a bit? Or was it more his ankle ain't right? Like, what were you seeing as a guy who's played with him?
Yeah, I mean, they're all a factor, right? I mean, we're getting up there in the years, and minutes played. It's never been done before. He's played the most minutes in the history of the game, right? So that has to be a factor. But, if you've ever had a high ankle sprain, it really hurts. And it's very tough to come back from, and you're going to deal with some pain trying to play with it. And you could see, you could tell that he was not 100%. He was favoring that ankle a little bit. And he was still able to be a little bit explosive, score in the mid to high 20 points per game. Unfortunately, his team needed more. So I expect him to really take care of his body this year. I think they all need to get healthy. That's the most important thing, especially AD. He's going to have to start, finding that fountain of youth, because he's at that part in his career where, he's playing so well, but now he has to get used to the load and managing that load and really preparing your body for that 82-game schedule plus the playoffs. So we'll see how they respond.
All right, Chris, we all like to play on prime time. Football players, we want to play in front of Joe Buck. We want to play in front of Troy. We want them calling our games. You guys, TNT, big time, prime time game for you guys, Shaquille O'Neal and the boys being able to cover the games. LeBron James, that's easy for us, right, to get up for prime time games. He's going into year 19? What does he have left to prove? Do you believe he still have that that desire to still compete every single day in practice, in the weight room, at the table, pushing away the chocolate and all the bad stuff from a nutritional standpoint? Does he still have that desire?
I think he does. And look, it would have been a different conversation if they were still competing right now. When you're in a position where you have to hear everyone saying that you've never lost in the first round and then you lost in the first round. Look, LeBron is a competitor. He doesn't like to, he does not like to lose. It's not fun. It's not a fun environment if you're losing. And so if he didn't have any fire under him, well, I think now he does. And you were saying it, Brandon, pushing yourself in the weight room. I write about that in my book. You have to take care of your body. He's built that up to a habit. And it's a great habit to have. Now it's just adding the extra fuel behind those workouts, behind getting your work done on the court and making sure you're being a great teammate. He's going to have to find that thing. And I think he's found it. And you know what? Let's be frank. He needs some rest. It's nothing wrong with rest. I got plenty of rest when I was in the beginning of my years when we weren't making the playoffs in Toronto, right. And it did my body great. So
that's interesting.
I think they'll be in a position where they can really get something going and most importantly, get healthy.
Chris, how long do you think LeBron can be the king or be sort of like an elite level player? Because one of the silver linings I thought of this Suns series, and oddly this high ankle sprain, was we got to see what LeBron looks like when he wasn't finishing at the rim, when he wasn't going to the hole and drawing fouls, when he's distributing and is like out on the 3-point line. And I thought, although it wasn't successful right now, I did think it was a little preview of that we could see LeBron at 40. Do you think he could play to 40 and have a Tom Brady-esque type career?
I think he can if he wants to. Now, as far as like playing at a high level, the number one option, that'd be pretty tough because that's so demanding night in and night out. But as he gets older, he can definitely be one of those guys, to give you sparks from time to time. He's always going to be able to be a distributor, and he's going to be able to get, 25, 26 points rolling out of bed. It's that next level. It's the 30 to 35 a night. That might be a challenge. Not to say that he can't do it, but it won't be as consistent as before because, Father Time is undefeated, right? So look for them to add. That's why I say look for the Lakers to add pieces, because if they can get someone else to kind of lighten the scoring load and the distribution, he'll be able to sustain his level of play for a little bit longer. But, at a very high level, the way he's capable of playing, 2 years, maybe at least one more year. I think that'll be an exciting thing because he's really getting into uncharted territory. I mean, MJ was at the top of his game at 36. LeBron is 36 now. I'm sure he's trying to break new ground as an athlete and as a competitor. So I definitely look for him to have a stellar season next year because of the perfect mix of rest, motivation from losing, and just wanting to get back out there and prove that he could still play at a high level in this league.
Yeah, and I'll have a longer offseason to rest up and do that. Hey, Chris, you got a new book out. It looks awesome, by the way. It's called Letters to a Young Athlete. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so, just in a nutshell, this is me reverse engineering the things that helped me be successful, not only through my career in the NBA, but just, lessons that I learned from coaches and teammates in middle school, high school, college. I wanted to write something in a letter form to not only the young athletes, but really anyone aspiring to be great. These are the things that I remember that truly helped me out. So I want to bring those gems for people, to read, aspiring to do something great in their lives. It's not easy. Things can be challenging. And this is kind of like a guidebook. And I want people to take these words and use them for themselves. I think this can greatly help out people looking for any sort of edge. I mean, I got so much information that helped me from books that I read throughout my career. This is the book that I never read. Yep. So I want athletes and CEOs and chefs and doctors and lawyers and accountants, commentators. I want everyone to be able to take something for themselves from this book.
Yeah, we'll make sure that Nick gets a copy of Letters to a Young Athlete. Look, I put this in the category of all Dan Millman's book, Way of the Peaceful Warrior, Relentless Tim Grover. You have Body Mind Mastery by Dan Millman. So I put that in that category, in that universe. I want to reference AD and try to draw some comparisons here, because in your book you talk about adversity, you talk about taking care of your body. Those are two things that I've been harping on all year. Adversity. He's dealing with, I think, probably the most adversity he's ever had in his career, going back to AAU basketball, going back to high school basketball. Injuries. We saw what his injuries did to this team. This team should still be competing. LeBron should be going for his 5th ring. So what can AD draw from your book to actually get him through this tough time that he's going through now?
I write, one of my chapters is about taking care of yourself. And another chapter is called Don't Get Too High, Don't Get Too Low, and handling criticism. Don't let him get to you. He plays for the Lakers. There's a certain responsibility that comes and a certain criticism that comes with playing for the Lakers. If you're not winning championships, they don't want to hear it. So he's in that sort of environment. Okay, we know that. And I think, this is going to be, like I said before, he's going to have to learn as you go throughout your career. He's going to have to learn and seek the new knowledge of taking care of your body. Not to say that he didn't before, but there's obviously another level that he's going to have to go to, because these strains and having calves and growing injuries, that's not going to help them be successful in their quest for a championship. So he's going to have to work on that durability. He's going to have to find those ways to get new treatments, to be able to strengthen his body, to be able to take the beating. Because, he pretty much is their number one scoring option. When he's playing well, when nobody can guard him, they're pretty much unbeatable. He's going to have to really concentrate for next year to be able to handle that load, handle the criticism, but most importantly, hey, don't get too high, don't get too low. Like I said before, if he stays even, if he recognizes the work that he has to put in, but more so recognize where he's at, be truthful about that with himself, and know that it's all about getting better. He has to get better. And if they come back focused next year, they can be championship contenders. That's what's most important.
Love it.
The book is called Letters to a Young Athlete by Chris Bosh. It is available now. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Really good stuff. Great to hear. We got to take a break. We're back talking the Brooklyn Nets dominant Game 2 performance. Are they on their way?
Giannis needs that book.
Sweeping the Bucks. Giannis needs
How
that
did
book.
you develop that shot?
Thank you, Chris.
Giannis needs to develop the shot.
Sunday on FS1, NASCAR hits the Lone Star State. It's the 2021 All-Star Race. The circuit's best drivers competing for a shot at $1 million. Sunday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. It's on FS1, and it is always on the Fox Sports app. And we are back here with Chris Broussard. Once again, we're talking his Clippers against the Utah Jazz. Someone's got the Jazz series. That series tips tonight. Man, it's already been a roller coaster ride in the first round for the Clippers. They were down 0-2. Then they were down 3-2. Then you saw Kawhi go vintage claw for game 6 and 7 to stave off elimination. And here we are. So, Broussard, have the Clippers maybe exercise their demons of postseasons past?
Well, thank you, Jenna, for calling them my Clippers again. I would love nothing more than to sit up.
You won
I would love
again.
nothing more. I would love nothing more than to sit up here and gloat and say Broussard's Clippers is back to being a headline on this show. But I can't be that obnoxious, all right? I got rid of the Clippers. I took my name off of them. I do think they're the best team left in the West, so I will say that. But I can't be so obnoxious to call them my Clippers anymore. But look, to answer your question, Jenna, I do think this was what they needed. It was just what the doctor ordered. We know one of the way to conquer your fears or to overcome an obstacle is to stare it right in the face. We've all heard the cliches, pressure busts pipes, pressure makes diamonds. The Clippers were either going to burst or they were going to become a diamond, and I think they're closer to being a diamond than they are to being busted. So, and Kawhi Leonard, look, he was being criticized harshly for really the first time in his career. He got it a little bit last year, but people gave him the benefit of the doubt to some degree because it was his first year with the Clippers. This year, oh, he's not a leader. Oh, he's just a good player, but he can't lead your team. He's not clutch. All of that stuff, and he stared it in the face and lifted his game to another level. Ty Lue has done a tremendous job. I mean, with the adjustments in the series, going small. He had the guts to bench Patrick Beverly. He's unleashed Terrence Mann. Unleash is a little strong, but giving him some playing time. Reggie Jackson's playing well. So, yeah, I think this was huge for the Clippers. And like I said, I think they're the best team remaining in the West, and I expect to see them in the finals. So, yeah, I think they exercise their demons.
So I think exercise their demons. I think we're a step or two getting ahead of ourselves. I think that, we were saying something similar about Milwaukee after Milwaukee dusted the Heat. And then all of a sudden, Milwaukee looks like the same old Milwaukee from the last 2 postseasons through 2 games against Brooklyn. It's like, oh, Bud's going to get fired. Giannis can't shoot. Whole thing's screwed. Things can change quickly in the NBA playoffs. What I will say is this for the Clippers. The Clippers, to me, had way more to lose in round 1 than to gain. Had they lost to Luka and the Mavs, it's a total, absolute disaster. One of Kawhi or Paul George would not have been back next year, I believe. And the front office gets changed, and the team, you don't tear it down because assuming Kawhi signs an extension there, you still have one of the 6 best players in basketball in the prime of his career. But you start searching. Because they beat the Mavs, there's what I would call a stay of execution. But if they lose, Broussard, and I'll just quickly go back to you on this because I want to ask this question. I know you're saying you're picking them now to come out of the West and you think they're the best team. But if they lose to the Jazz, which I don't think would shock you, then how much did they really exercise? Right? If Kawhi and Paul George, year 1, if it's back-to-back round 2 losses, then I still feel like they're not in as dire of a spot as it looked like they were going to be after 2 games against Luka. But it's certainly well below the expectation that they had going into this season.
No, I hear you, and that's correct. And look, these four, I'm picking the Clippers in the West, but sure, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't get out because these four teams, Utah, Phoenix, Denver, the Clippers, they're all pretty close. You know, there's no LeBron James, there's no Kevin Durant to kind of tip the scales. They're all very close, but I like the Clippers because I feel like on paper, they are the best of the four teams, and I feel like their problem was mental. You know, they couldn't play in the clutch. Kyrie and Paul George didn't play as well as they needed to at the important points. I feel like they may have gotten over that, and with their talent being what it is, I think they should win the West.
Yeah, well, you know, I picked the Clippers to win it, well, to come out the West because I never bought into this whole playoff struggle. I mean, we're talking about a team last year who didn't want to be in the bubble. And I've been in the locker room before on a few teams where guys didn't want to play, guys didn't want to practice, and the outcome and the results isn't pretty. So I knew exactly what we were going to see out of that team when they were the first team that stood up and said I didn't want to be there. Now I did, Wilds, buy into, you know, the mental fortitude and the struggles that Paul George had. But when Paul George stood up and said, you know what, I'm facing this. I'm talking to a therapist. You know, I want to overcome these struggles. You know, I'm dealing with a little bit of depression. I bought into it. And what have we seen all year? We saw Paul George not be playoff P. That's what we saw. This dude had a phenomenal, I wouldn't say phenomenal year. He had a really good year. He played his role. He played his part. And so far in the playoffs, we haven't seen any glimpse of playoff P. So for that reason, you know, I'm still rolling with the Clippers, obviously, Wilds. I never bought into this whole notion that they had some, things to get over, hurdles to get over in the playoffs. I never bought into it.
Yeah, well, there was certainly like a feeling of celebration for the idea that they took the Mavs to 7 games and Luka single-handedly almost beat them. That's not the Jazz, Broussard. The Jazz are the #1 seed. The Jazz are going to pack their stadium. They've got a ton of people in there, unlike LA. The Jazz, over the regular season, have better numbers than the Clippers. They play great defense. And I know that the Clippers shoot a lot of threes. The Jazz are the first team in NBA history to hit at least 10 threes in each game. So I feel like everybody thinks the Clippers are going to win, and the Jazz feel like this sort of bizarro underdog, even though they've got home court advantage and the #1 seed. I feel like it's going to be a big coming out party for Donovan Mitchell. I know you're like, coming out party, he's already a superstar. No, he's going to go to another level. I know we think he's at like Trey Young level. Oh, it's like Devin Booker kind of level. I think Donovan Mitchell has a chance here to go to a higher level that no one thinks that he can actually get to, except Donovan Mitchell and us Donovan Mitchell stands.
I actually, Wilds, if the Jazz are going to win, I actually think it's the other direction. I think for the Jazz to win this series, it can't be a Donovan Mitchell series. I think that one of the reasons what Luka did to me was so impressive is Luka's the only real option on the Mavs. The Clippers know it. They always had the ability to put Kawhi on him when need be. Kawhi took on that challenge Game 6 and a lot of Game 7. And even though Game 7, Luka put up huge numbers, Kawhi did great. To me, where the Jazz are a far tougher matchup than the Mavs were for the Clippers, Broussard, is if you take away Donovan, you still have 4 guys that can get 20 points. The Mavs didn't have that. And so, pardon me, Kawhi can't guard everybody. So I actually think if Donovan goes into this series, Broussard, saying, I've got to do to the Clippers what I did to the Nuggets, even though they lost to the Nuggets in round 1 last year, when he had those 2 50-point playoff games, I don't think that's the strategy. I think the strategy is do what the Jazz have done all year, share the basketball and see who's hot. I think that is more likely to present problems for the Clippers than Donovan averaging 35 a game in this series.
Well, I lean more toward Wilds in that I agree. I mean, I don't think of Donovan Mitchell as a superstar. But if he takes out Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, then yeah, he may get to that level. And Nick, they're going to need him to be kind of like Luka was. I'm not saying he's got to average 35 to 40 points, but he's going to have to be he's their one guy that really can consistently break down the defense and get whatever he wants. And he has to do that and force double teams and then kick it to their shooters to hit threes. Because that's what Luka did. Luka was so good that they had to end up collapsing on him, and then he kick it to the shooters for three-pointers, and they were hitting. And you're right, the Jazz are great three-point shooters. That's got to be the strategy. If they just try, I just think trying to move the ball against the Clippers won't be as successful as Mitchell breaking down that defense and creating open looks for his teammates himself.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I'm just shocked that all the support the Jazz have right now, when you look back at this year and seeing, everybody using them as a floor mat, talking about they don't believe in the Jazz. So why now does everybody support the Jazz? Go back to the NBA All-Star weekend. Nobody wanted to pick, the guys there. Why didn't more guys get picked? And then you saw LeBron James make fun of them. And now all of a sudden everybody want to pick the Jazz. So it's going to be interesting to see how this series plays out.
All right, let's turn to Nick, who's going to hand out some NBA playoff medals right now. Kyrie, pretty steady game 2 in the Nets blowout win over the Bucks, 22-5-6, but just missing out on the medal. Nick, who did make your playoff podium stand?
Kyrie was great. He just missed out. I'll tell you who didn't just miss out. DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton now has played 7 career playoff games. The first 4 were against Anthony Davis before he went down. He then went up against Nikola Jokic, and he has more than held his own against all these guys. DeAndre Ayton, not quite the forgotten guy from his draft, but Luka went 3rd, Trey went 5th. Questions about, what should the Suns have done? DeAndre Ayton, once again, continues his brilliant first postseason. Last night playing Jokic to a draw, and if he plays Jokic to a draw, the Nuggets are cooked in this series. So great job by Ayton. Silver medal, Ayton's teammate Chris Paul. The wrist, the shoulder, I don't know. He looked like Chris Paul for only the second time all postseason. 21, 6, and 11. If people didn't stay up late to see this game, Nuggets up 8 early in the 3rd quarter, and then the Suns absolutely got, no pun intended, but lit fire and ran away and hid from Denver to take a 1-0 series lead. But the gold medalist last night, Kevin Durant. He was brilliant. He was spectacular on both ends. Highlights, he cooked Giannis once. He cooked PJ Tucker there. He was 67% from the field. Keep in mind, he didn't play in the 4th quarter. This would have been an easy 40 for KD if the Bucks had given more resistance and made it a game. So KD gets the gold. 32, 4, and 6 for Durant, who's averaging a quiet 32 per game this postseason. There's your medal stand from the 2 games in the NBA last night, Jenna.
All right, that's who made it. Kevin Wildes, who just missed the cut.
Oh, step aside, Tracy McGrady, all-star off the backboard and dunk. Make room for the Joker off the backboard and the layup. Look, savvy play. Was it the most athletic thing I ever saw in the world? Probably not, but was it a great play that shouldn't have counted as a shot? Yes, so great job, Joker.
Joker is awesome.
Hey, we're back here talking the Brooklyn Nets. Blake Griffin's Nets. They are rolling right now. Are they going to sweep the Bucks? Talk about that next. First things first. Hey, tonight on FS1, one of baseball's best young players taking center stage. Juan Soto leads the Nationals against the Rays. It all starts at 6:30 Eastern on FS1 in the Fox Sports app. Baseball. There it is, just like that. Time for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Subway. Game 2, Bucks, Nets, no James Harden, no problem whatsoever for Brooklyn. They came out strong, they stayed strong, they finished strong. Bucks never had a chance in this one. Nets beat them by 39 points. They take a 2-0 series lead. Kevin Durant leading the way. He had 32 points. Here was KD after the game talking anything but his past injury woes.
Tomorrow will mark 2 years since you initially injured your calf. I know you worked your butt off to get to this point, but did you ever think you'd be this good?
Is that a real question? Of course, I mean, what you want me to say to that? Of course I did.
mean, it's pretty impressive what you've been able to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But, I mean, that was 2 years ago. I'm looking forward to just getting up tomorrow and going to practice, watching film, and seeing how we can get better. But, I appreciate that. But, that was too long ago.
I didn't get too high, I didn't get too low. Even after the Miami series, we was up 4-0. Coming to this series, I wasn't high. Now we're down 2-0. I'm not low. I'm just keep doing what I'm doing. Keep trusting my work. Keep trusting my teammate. Keep believing in the team. Keep believing in the habits we built all year, and hopefully, Game 3 we can get a win.
So, Brandon, do you think Brooklyn's domination is more about the Bucks or about the Nets?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to see Giannis introduce a second move. You definitely want to see Giannis develop the shot from deep. That hasn't happened in the last 2 years. But, this was all about the Nets. Come on, if you watched that game, you saw it. And I truly believe they're exceeding their own expectations right now. I think they, thought that they can come together and win a title and lean on their skill and lean on what their strength is, and that's the offensive side, the offensive firepower. But when you watched that game last night, you saw them play phenomenal defense. I mean, this team, the Bucks, they roll out of bed and they can drop 120. That's what they're going to do. That's what they average all year. So for them to hold the Bucks to 86 points last night said a lot about this team. So I the answer to me is it's all about the Nets.
Yeah. I've been kind of debating how to answer this all morning, and I think I maybe have finally gotten to it. I think these two games thus far has been about the Nets. Particularly last night, I think the Nets played a perfect game of basketball on both ends. I think these two games have been about the Nets overcoming the Harden injury and playing great on both ends, particularly last night. I think Game 3 is about Giannis. Because the fact of the matter is, this is not a mismatch talent-wise with Harden out. You just go down. Durant's the best player in the series. Then it's supposed to be Giannis. Then Kyrie. Then it's supposed to be Middleton and Drew Holiday. So like the Nets have players 1 and 3. The Bucks have players 2 through 5 or 2, 4, and 5. And then you go see how it works out. The question is, can Giannis in Game 3 step up? We saw Luka with his season on the line, even in a loss, step up. We saw Kawhi with his season on the line, play one of the finest games of his career. We saw Dame drop 55. We saw the Joker in that same game almost drop a 40-point triple-double. We have seen when our stars' backs were against the wall, to be totally candid, all of them except for LeBron, which leads you to believe he's probably banged up more than he let on, step up even if it wasn't enough. So, Wilds, the Nets deserve massive respect for what they did in Game 1 and what Game 2 was, as well as you can play on both ends of the court. But Game 3 is going to be about Giannis. And it doesn't mean if the Bucks lose, Giannis is a fraud. But it does mean that Giannis needs to go into that game with the mindset of, I averaged 40 on these guys in the regular season. I am going to do at least that with my season on the line, and then we'll see if the other guys hit their outside shots.
Yeah, the Bucks cannot lose at home, and I don't expect them to. And I know it was a blowout, and I know it looked not competitive, but this team has now played 5 times in the regular season and the postseason. The home team has won every time. And now that it's going back to Milwaukee, the Bucks are going to shoot better from 3. They're going to shoot better from the line. They're going to shoot better from the field. And Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, who are scoring in the teens in Brooklyn, will start scoring in the 20s like they did during the regular season.
Right.
And I know it was a blowout, Jenna, but it's not college football.
Yep.
It only counts as one game. You're not moving up the poll any. So I feel okay. I still feel confident in the Bucks until they lose a home game.
That is a good point. It is not college football. Quick, take your pick. Clips.
Correct.
Jazz. It tips tonight in Salt Lake City. Brandon, who wins Game 1?
Yeah, Clippers pick up where they left the Mavs. So I'm going to go with the Clippers by 10 tonight.
Ooh.
Wild.
I'm going to go with the Jazz by 8. I think Gobert does a great job keeping Kawhi and Paul George from getting anything at the rim.
I think this is the second straight 7-game series for the Clippers. But tonight, I like the Jazz. I think the Jazz have been rested. The Clippers coming off the emotions of the Game 7, having to win back-to-back games, Game 6 and 7. I like the Jazz at home tonight by 5.
Brandon, I'll go with you and take the Clippers. Undisputed starts next. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.